If Pokemon Black and White are so good, then why isn't there a Pokemon Black and White 2? The year is 2012, and whilst I was playing Sudoku Maniacs exclusively, the rest of the Pokemon fandom were speculating on a possible definitive edition of Black and White. Every other game had a definitive edition, so obviously a Pokemon Grey would be coming. Well, that wasn't the case. Game Freak were feeling fancy for this generation and decided to release sequels to the games and surprise fans all over the world. In an interview, Junichi Masuda stated that they went with sequels because they felt the franchise had become too predictable and wanted to change things up. Well, hey, no one was really complaining. A new story is obviously better than a slightly souped up version of the old one. But where does that leave me? In my Black and White video, which you should go watch, I spoke about how a younger me was cut off from the internet and restricted to only educational games. I had no idea this game was coming. I was completely oblivious to it. However, I got lucky this time. Around Christmas, I was out with another family member, and I managed to get into a game store. So I was shocked when I saw a sequel to Black and White on the shelves. Where did it come from? Why did Zekrom and Reshiram look different? I needed answers. My parents weren't with me, and I seized my chance. I told my relative this is what I wanted for Christmas, so they picked it up for me. To be honest, I've never been good at asking for things, and £30 felt like a lot of money back then, so I definitely felt bad about it. But my parents couldn't take the game away from me since it was a present, and I finally managed to play Pokemon again. Now that I think about it, I have a pretty conflict-ridden past with Pokemon. The stories can make their own separate video. I might get on that. Okay, Black 2 and White 2. How are they? They're really just more of the best. It's another pure fun Pokemon adventure. I played through White 2, so I'll just talk about that game. So I don't have to say both titles, but pretty much all of what I say applies to both titles. I'll get the gameplay out of the way. It's the exact same as Black and White, so just watch my video in those games instead. In place of that, I'll talk about the changes. All the changes in the sequel are there for the purpose to show how Unova has changed during the 2 years between White and White 2. For example, half the gym leaders are new. The new additions are just as vibrant as their predecessors, which is good since one of Gen 5's strongest points are how gym leaders assist you in fighting Team Plasma. If I'm going to have allies, I want them to be cool and the gym leaders succeed at being cool. The most notable new gym leader is Cheren, your rival in Pokemon White. He takes the role as a normal type gym leader. It's really nice to see how his life has turned out 2 years later. Also, the gyms were actually way more challenging this game, which is a nice improvement. The struggle to earn a badge is now super satisfying. So ultimately, Unova's gyms were upgraded from alright to some of the best in the series. Unova is also different geographically. We know it's based on the USA, which normally would be cool, but if it came out today... Oh god. Just like any country, Unova has developed over time. In Pokemon White, Route 4 was in early days of construction, but in White 2, the construction has progressed and now there's a full motorway going overhead. Whilst most cities underwent some small changes, the true beauties are the new locations. Unova now has 5 new towns and cities. These have clearly been in Unova for a long time, but were only made accessible in the sequels. Here are the new locations: Aspertia City, Flossie Town, I think that's how you say it, Verbank City, Lentimas Town, and Humalao City. Honestly, these places are definitely some of the best. They feel the most Unova. Aspertia City is definitely my favourite of the new towns, because of how subtly scenic it is. Also helps that it's where the game begins, so it starts on a high note. Unova was already an amazing region, but Game Freak had no right going as hard as they did on the new areas. White 2 definitely displays how great America is. For the scenery. Not so much for the Americans. White 2 has all the new Pokemon from Pokemon White, but also has Pokemon from previous generations from the get-go. This was definitely the right decision. As much as I loved all the original Pokemon Journey in White, they definitely would have gotten stale if it was the same 2 games in a row when they were used. I have more time to talk about some specific Unova Pokemon, so I'll give my opinions on the starters, because I didn't mention them in my first Gen 5 video. As always, the starters are Water, Grass, and Fire type. In Unova, you can choose between Oshawott, Snivy, and Tepig. I always choose Oshawott, but since I had just played through all of White with one, I chose Snivy this time. Until I gave in and bred my Samurott in White and traded her child to White 2, just so I could have 2 starters. I need Oshawott. Think of it this way, I'm just continuing my first Samurot's legacy into the next game. I think it's pretty cool. Snivy is also a solid starter Pokemon, but its evolution line is just small snake, then big snake. Ha, yeah, that's it. As for Tepig, he's cute. He pretty much gets dumber and dumber looking until you end up with this. It is a big ass pig, not gonna lie. White 2 has a total of 300 Pokemon, which is more than enough to have a great and varied experience. Did you hear that? More than enough. Before we move on, there's 2 new features in White 2. There's Pokestar Studios, where you make movies. The next is Join Avenue. It's a shopping center that you can help grow. However, the main appeal to this was having other players visit via Nintendo Wi-Fi connection, and that service has been discontinued. I do not care for these features at all, but they are 100% optional, so I just thought I'd throw them in for people who are into that kind of thing. Now we return to the magnum opus of Generation 5, the story, and thankfully, I don't really have to introduce the characters this time. The only person I need to get out of the way is your new rival, Hugh. Hi Hugh, how are you doing? He's on his journey with the goal of taking back the Purloin, I still don't know that one, that Team Plasma stole from his little sister 5 years ago. He gets it back. That's his story wrapped up and dealt with. For this video, I'm going to just tell the narrative of White 2, so I don't constantly have to switch between Black 2 and White 2, because it's annoying. Also, I picked the male trainer, whose canon name is Nate, so I'll just call him that instead of saying the protagonist every 15 seconds. So yeah, let's get into the rest of Gen 5's plot. At the very beginning of his Pokemon journey, Nate runs into Team Plasma trying to steal Pokemon. The Team Plasma grunt escapes quickly, but their brief interaction has already revealed a lot to us. Firstly, Team Plasma is sporting a new all-black uniform, and secondly, we know that they're still active following the events of Pokemon White. To be honest, that's all Team Plasma really does for the first half of the game. They're just stealing random Pokemon, but with each of their interactions, more is revealed about the state of Team Plasma. They have been made to believe that N betrayed Ghetsis, and took the power of the legendary Pokemon for himself. In Castelia City, Nate meets a scientist named Colrus, who seems to be affiliated with Team Plasma. The goal of his research is finding the best method to bring out a Pokemon's true power, regardless of ethics. You meet Colrus a few times, but all of these moments are just tidbits of info that build up to the finale. Things really pick up with Team Plasma once you get to Driftvale City, where Nate witnesses a conversation between an ex-Team Plasma member and a current member. This reveals to us that Team Plasma was split, some choosing to follow N and redeem themselves by looking after Pokemon, and the rest continuing their treachery under Ghetsis. This is reminiscent of the split in Christianity, and if you take one look at Team Plasma's design, you can tell this is what Game Freak was going for. Either way, happy to be on the side of the prods.
Take that back.
Up until the halfway point, the story had mainly been establishing the aftermath of Pokemon White's conclusion. This was pretty enjoyable because you finally get a taste of continuity in Pokemon, and it feels really good. Things really pick up once you board Team Plasma's frigate. I really can't take the word frigate seriously. This is their sailboat and their new base. Nate, Hugh, and Sharon fight off Team Plasma grunts, but are eventually kicked off by the Shadow Triad. They're a group of ninjas dedicated to protecting Ghetsis, an answer to him only. They did appear in White, but really didn't do all that much, so I didn't mention them. Following this, Nate and Sharon notice how unusually cold it was on the frigate, compared to Driftvale City. But that's a mystery for later. As Nate continues his journey, Professor Juniper begins to suspect Team Plasma have acquired another legendary dragon. She takes you to Lacunosa Town, which has a past of being terrorized by an unknown dragon-type Pokemon. They speak to an old lady who tells them the tale of Kyurem. Now, we know the story of the 2 fighting princes and how the legendary Unova split into 2 to be with both of them. And if you don't know this, go watch my black and white video already. Basically, Kyurem is the cold, leftover husk from when the dragon split. From here, the theories about Team Plasma using this Pokemon started. Juniper tells Nate to continue to Opelucid City to fight Drayden and ask him about Kyurem. After Drayden fully tells you Kyurem's tale, Team Plasma attacks. Their sail ship is now an airship, we'll get to that later, and they fly over Opelucid City, blasting ice cannons everywhere. Pretty metal for a Pokemon game, to be honest. Team Plasma confronts Drayden and asks him for his ancient family heirloom. the DNA splicers. The Shadow Triad swipe the splicers, and whilst Nate does fight them off, he can't steal them back. Shortly after, Sharon arrives and tells you that Team Plasma is near Humaleo City, since there's unusual temperature readings there. When you defeat Humaleo's gym leader, Nate and Hugh raid Team Plasma's frigate once again. Side note, I really like how direct the conflict is between Team Plasma and Nate. Plasma is scarred by how they were defeated by a young trainer 2 years ago, and they're determined to not let it happen again. Anyway, Nate fights his way through the frigate, until he comes across Kurim himself, hooked up to some sort of machine. It's now clear that Kurim is being used as the source of the power for the entire frigate, explaining how they attacked Opelucid with ice blasts and were able to fly. This is where Nate encounters Colrus. Colrus reveals that he was made the boss of Team Plasma, and has been helping them so he can research Ghetsis' method of bringing out Pokemon's power. He's not exactly evil, just cold. Once Nate defeats him, Colrus makes no effort to stop Nate. He is equally fascinated with Nate's method of bringing out Pokemon's power through bonds as he is with Ghetsis' abusive method. He decides to let Nate and Ghetsis battle to see which method is more effective. Following a speech from Ghetsis recapping the events of Black and White, Kurim is deployed into the Giant Chasm, his birthplace, and where his power is at its greatest. Despite the Shadow Triad's best attempts to stop him, Nate arrives at the Giant Chasm and is ready to kick ass. Team Plasma surrounds Nate, but that's when ex-Team Plasma members finally decide to get off their backsides and use their Pokemon to fight. With the different sides of Team Plasma duking it out, Nate makes his way to Ghetsis and Kurim. It's here where Ghetsis reveals his plan to freeze all of Unova. He's ditched his previous plan of using a legendary Pokemon as bait, and instead intends to use one to attack the people of Unova, forcefully claim power over the region, and rule with an iron fist. Then Ghetsis tries to murder Nate. Just straight up murder. He tries to impale Nate with Kurim's shards of ice. This is a kid's game, by the way. It's messed up. But just before Nate is killed, strange sentence, a burst of fire with energy that rivals my own mixtape erupts into the cave and melts the icicles. In all his glory, the true GOAT of Pokemon, N himself flies into the chasm on Reshiram's back. N takes a stand against Ghetsis, and you can really see how he's changed. We left him as an unsure man who just had his belief shattered, and now he confronts Ghetsis, steadfast in his new and righteous beliefs. I love N. Despite N and Ghetsis being absent until the finale, their presence was always strongly felt throughout the game via the representation of the warring sides of Team Plasma. N tries to talk some sense into Ghetsis, but at this point it's clear Ghetsis is way past the point of sanity, let alone reason. But what do you know? Turns out Ghetsis has tricked N yet again. Ghetsis knew N would bring Reshiram once he caught wind of the attack on Opelucid, which is exactly what Ghetsis wanted. Ghetsis pulls out the DNA splicers and fuses them into Kurim. Kurim then uses these to fuse with Reshiram, not without intense battle between the two though. You see, since Kurim had once been a part of the same Pokemon as Reshiram, their DNA is perfectly compatible to be spliced. Now Ghetsis had created the ultimate Pokemon, one that could freeze Unova and then melt the ice for Ghetsis' needs with its flames. This Pokemon is called White Kurim. N is distraught that his closest friend had been absorbed into Kurim, and begs Nate to save Reshiram. Of course, Nate did what any 16-year-old would do when confronted with a beast that could devastate their entire country. He beat it up with his pets. Because what else would you do? Obviously, Ghetsis is not happy. He starts to have a mental breakdown and comes at Nate with his own Pokemon. Once you drag through another ridiculously hard Ghetsis battle, Ghetsis just breaks down, and N tries to calm him down. He still has some compassion for the man that raised him. This just angers Ghetsis even more, to the point where the Shadow Triad have to come in and take him away before he does anything too rash. Now that it's all resolved, N thanks Nate for saving Reshiram, and you continue to fight the Elite Four and the champion, completely uninterrupted by terrorists this time. Oh, don't worry, there's still more after the champion. Let's enjoy a quick break for now, because this has all been a lot. And we're back. Once Nate arrives home, N Zoroark calls him and guides him to Victory Road. From here, Zoroark takes you to the underground ruins of N's castle. N meets you here, and him and Nate walk to the throne room together, where the finale of Black and White took place. N sees Nate as a trainer who seeks the truth, and challenges him to fight Reshiram to prove Nate's desire for the truth. Ultimately, Nate emerges victorious. N sees the result and decides it's time for him and Reshiram to part ways. N has already found his truth, and now he should help Nate find his. N and Reshiram share an emotional farewell, then Reshiram returns to his stone form, and now Nate goes to Dragon Spiral Tower to reawaken and capture him. Nate finally battles and captures Reshiram, and N shows up one last time. N tells Nate to use Reshiram to shape the world to his truth, and make his own belief a reality. N hopes Nate can help bring the world closer to a place where humanity and Pokemon can be together without Pokeballs. A place where they stay together based on trust alone. N departs. And with that, Pokemon White 2 draws to a close. You've obviously noticed that both Gen 5 videos have focused a lot on the narrative. That's simply because I really like them. I already said that Black and White had the best story in any Pokemon game, and then you get to Black 2 and White 2, which just expands on it even more. It's brilliant. It's easy to look at the game and say that they de-emphasize the theme of truth versus ideals, but that's not the case. The theme is placed upon the factions of Team Plasma that are at odds with each other. The members that left to follow N represent the truth of how the situation 2 years ago played out, whereas the members who went with Ghetsis represent Ghetsis' idealized versions of these events, which blurs their judgment. The theme is just as present as ever. You only need to look for it. The story arc of Gen 5 left a satisfying conclusion, and whilst we're still to see another game get a set of sequels, Black 2 and White 2 are a true testament to how greatly a sequel can benefit a Pokemon story. To answer the question whether Black and White or Black and White 2 is better isn't necessary. They are both one creation, it just so happened to have been split into two. Just simply, the best way to describe Black and White 2 is that they're just more of the best.